Good evening. I am absolutely delighted to be with all of you this evening, our eighth ALLC Leadership Summit, and being hosted by Indonesia, a land that is so hospitable and known for its hospitality. I've personally experienced your hospitality and I love it. And my lead in to set the tone for the summit, I was asked to speak. So I'm going to be taking one part of the theme today. I'm going to be talking on leading on purpose. There are two words there, leading and purpose. Here, leading is within the context of responsibility. Every leader, whoever leads, whatever it is, whether it's a two-man um, ministry or 300 staff ministry, every leader must lead with responsibility. So leading equates responsibility. The other word is purpose. The original meaning of purpose by itself means intention, or if you put it in the context of leading on purpose is intentionality. So when we are looking at leading on purpose, that means the responsibility and with an intentionality. So when a leader only wants a position and does not want to embrace the responsibility, then they only lead for spotlight. Spotlight is an addiction for them. They like to be in the spotlight. But the reality, as we see even from the scriptures, those spotlights are temporal. So you just are enjoying the spotlight, but not the responsibility of the job or the task or what was embraced by you to take on leading. So, this whole evening, we're going to be looking in that dimension. With no responsibility, you will have no intentionality. There will be no intentionality. And especially the intentionality to fulfill the vision that there is in front of you or see the fulfillment of the corporate vision. And you only look for self interest. I'm talking within the context of YWAM. I know several leaders who lead and they're good and gifted people, but it's all self interest. There's nothing about the intentionality of what is in front of them and what is to be embraced by them. Desiring a position or leadership by itself is not wrong at all. In fact, Paul talks about it when he writes in his epistles. He says, if anyone desires the office of a bishop, he desires a good thing. In other words, what it means is if you want to be a leader, it's not wrong at all. It's a good thing. But can you drink from the cup of suffering? We'll talk about that a little bit down the road. But for now, I just want to bring into the picture. Remember that woman, the mother, who came to Jesus and said, I want my son to be on the right and the left of the throne, James and John. Do you remember that? Yes, it's in that. Why did they want that place to be right next to each other, the right hand and the left hand of the throne? It's because the proximity to the throne gives them a wide influence. Instead of being influenced by the throne, they want to influence the people around them because of the throne, because of the proximity. And that influence can turn out to be, um, instead of being influenced by the throne, you go out from your own context and you use the throne to manipulate, to and condition the thought process of the people that are following. It's like name dropping. You know, Lauren was in my house the other day Or I was taking a trip and Laura and I were going. We name drop. It's not necessary, but we use the throne to manipulate people. That's irresponsibility. That's not the intentionality. What Why you and I are being invested with that privilege of being a leader. You see, name dropping alone does not do the trick, but it elevates you into a spotlight. Oh my goodness, he's close to the throne. He knows those big guys. I've done it before, and only to find out how wrong I've been in using that proximity or using people who can further my or extend my influence. Leadership, because of that, leadership takes credit rather than giving credit to them that is around him or her. You see, the tendency of leaders to take credit is far more easy than giving credit to someone around them. You see, many years ago, I was in a very poor church down in South India, and I saw a wall plaque. It said this: humility is acknowledging that God and people have brought me this far. When a leader is not embracing their responsibility, but use the throne to influence people around and then take credit and not give credit, that's the flip side of pride. So I don't know. Today I'm speaking to the emerging generations and I don't know, emerging leadership, and for the leaders who are already in place and haven't evaluated their leaders and their leadership. And I will talk to you about it in a few minutes. In 1993, Tom Hallis came to me when we were in Shimla for our own leadership summit at that time. And he came and he asked me, Sam, we are looking at you to be the next national director. What do you think? So I looked at him and I said, I have the education, I have the training, I have the experience, I can do it, but I don't have the character to match the title. In those days, we had titles. Now we don't. Now we just have responsibility, supposedly. That's why I'm talking about responsibility. So he looked at me in a real weird Aussie look. And then he said, what does your wife think? I said, why are you asking me that? Why don't you ask my wife? She's here. So he goes and asks my wife. And my wife is clever. So she said, when he said, what do you think? And my wife asked, what did Sam tell you? He says, he doesn't have the character for it. He said, I'm so glad Sam said that. Talk about wives being partners with you. She was truthful and real. You see, when someone comes and gives you a promotion, it's a great affirmation, no doubt about that. But if you embrace responsibility, you will know whether you have the character for that. And merely, yes, it's all good for someone to believe in you and trust you and release that, but you know exactly where you are. And so I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can probably do it without a title, or I can help somebody else do the job and I will be the person at the back. Anyway, time went on. 2 years later, he came back and he said, are you willing to do this? Then I was ready because my heart was dealt with. Why did I do this? Because I knew at that time YWAM was just launching and coming into visibility in the body of Christ. With that character deficit, I would have brought an embarrassment if there was a failure to the body of Christ, and then it would set back our mission many paces back, and it'll take a harder job for the leaders following me to gain that credibility back. Dearly beloved, This is Leadership Summit. So I just wanted to talk to you about this context of where we are embracing responsibility. With responsibility comes what I call it when leadership is tested in humility, it bears deeper accountability. And responsibility, the levels of depths in your character equates the need for accountability. I want to ask you a question. Who are you accountable to? How does accountability play out for you in your leadership? Accountability basically is not about someone controlling you or refining your gifts, but it's a defining of the quality of leadership you provide. When I was a national director back in India, I called my office staff. In the beginning, I had little or no staff in the office, but then my office grew. I had maybe about 25, 30 people in my office. So I wanted to have an accountability. So I used to have Thursday afternoon, I would call the whole staff. I would not meet in my office. I would sit in the conference room and say, okay, I'm going to sit in the hot seat. How did I do? But your responsibility is only telling me what within the sphere of the national office. You can't talk about my family life. You can't talk about that, but just talk to me about how's my leadership within this context. I had, I literally had two secretaries. One of the secretaries had an immense problem with me. So she said, it took them a while to speak it out. But that Thursday was the day. So she said, I am very, uh, she said, I find it difficult to lie for you. I said, what? What do you mean lie? I was totally unaware because I would get a call from somebody and I would go literally outside the door of the office and I would say, tell them I'm outside. I can't take the call. And she would do that. But she said, that's lying. You're here. Technically, I was outside, so I was telling the truth, but really not because I was right there. So she called out a white lie, which is the first cousin of black lie, calling out me as a leader. Can you imagine what kind of a witness I am with my own staff? That's why we need to be evaluated in our leadership. I hope you're listening to me. I'm not trying to be legalistic. I'm wanting to see how much of an influence you really have. Because there's an old Indian saying, proverb. It says this: a candle does not know how bright it is. It's only the people around. I wonder how bright my candle was at that time in the office. Was it really bright or was it just kind of this? So you see, when you want to bear responsibility, you bear 360 degrees of responsibility, character, vision, then staffing, how you treat them. Is there a pastoral aspect of it? So another story very quickly before I close. I have another 5 minutes or so, or 6 minutes. And when I first pioneered a work in India, I had a team of 7 that came with me from Singapore. And in 3 months, 5 of them left, and one person stayed behind with me. Coincidentally, that person is from Indonesia. He stayed not because of choice, because he had no money to go back. So he was stuck with me. The rest left, and I'm looking at severe damage to my reputation as a leader and from my past experience and all of that stuff. And I'm thinking, I can't hold people. What's wrong with me? And when I asked that question, I got the answer, but I refused to accept it. And that is, these five people went to Singapore and told them how bad Sam is. I mean, he is a controlling leader. He is this and that. And I'm looking at, what are you talking about? I am an Indian. You're on my turf, and you play by my rules because India plays with the different rules than Singapore does, and Australia does, and America does, and Canada does, and whatever the team was made up of that came with. I was refusing to listen to what they said. Later down the road, Floyd McClung said something very profound, and he said this: Sam, if there's any truth in what was said about you, any truth, never mind the tone, never mind the attitude, never mind how it came. If there's any truth, then change. Then change. I did not. But that incident stuck with me. Later, I found out how controlling I was, how high handed I was. You see, leadership bears a pain that I wanted to talk to you earlier on. It is about transparency. And I was unwilling to do that. If you're a leader, aspiring leader, follow these steps and not the steps that the world tells what a leader should be or how a leader should act and how a leader is defined by the successes. Because let me tell you, success is an addiction. Because if you are a leader that looking for success, you will use people. But if you are in the context of the word, if you're a leader that really are interested in embracing the responsibility, you will develop people. You will not use people, but you will develop people. So when we talk about leading on purpose, it's as an intentionality of a 360 of not just the task in front of you. Some of us have a task, we don't even do it well, but we like spotlight and hide behind it and not take responsibility, but blame things. With leadership comes responsibility. With responsibility comes accountability. So in my leadership, I failed to acknowledge my control and my issues of high handed leadership and my decision making. Leadership. Now, let me tell you this, and I want to leave very quickly and come to the last bit of my message. Leadership's main responsibility, hear me out. If everything that I speak, it hinges on this point. Leadership's main responsibility is to produce leaders greater than themselves. That is purpose and intentionality. How many leaders are you really developing? You know, some of us, especially in Asia, we don't want other leaders to show up because we want to be the leader and we kind of suppress. What is your response when you see someone smarter than you, sharper than you, more talented than you shows up on your team? Do you use them to help your deficit? Or do you find a way that they can exit out of your team, out of your ministry, so that they can go somewhere else where someone else can take care of them? I mean, how does that work? But Jesus is interested in you developing leaders better than yourself. That is a credit. That's a feather on your cap. So let's go. I have very few minutes left. And in my closing thoughts, I just want to throw some things out for you. And that is this: when you go through what I've just spoken, leaders have courage to evaluate their own leadership. That is something is missing in today's leaders. They are unwilling to allow any kind of evaluation, not to show you that you're bad or small, but it is to define and refine who you are as a person. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. Our own leadership needs to be refined. On a regular basis, we need someone or subject ourselves to someone we trust to speak into our lives, not in other areas of your life, but in your areas of leadership. I highly recommend that you find someone. Who do you have actually to trust and go through an assessment of your leadership on a regular basis? Do you or you don't? That's why I'm telling you today, dearly beloved, it is well and important if you read the scriptures, Jesus's parables, more than 63% of his parables had to do with evaluation. If it's important, why would Jesus do that? I mean, I don't have enough time. I can go through all of them if you like. But this is the missing piece today in our leadership development is the personal evaluation. So we are going to be getting into our breakout rooms shortly. By the way, this breakout room that we are going to be Rick Rick Ward, he's a genius. I don't know how he does this, but he's got it all down. He's got people in the breakout room, and we will be the same group going right through the next 3-4 days that we're together. And so in that breakout room, I just want us to think a little bit about whether we justify our failures and mistakes, whether we become too defensive often. Once in a while, it's normal to be defensive, but often something's wrong then. That's why we have to really engage with God and with people because it's people who help us. It's the people who bring us to the finish line. And in the breakout room, I would like you to discuss these few things. Number one, discuss about your own leadership. This is one of those times, forget your pride. Just say it like it is. You'll feel a lot better. Trust me. Evaluate how you do leadership and how you lead. Self evaluation. If you do well, just say so. That's humility too. What is your response to people's correction? What's your response when people try to correct you? Are you open to correction? What steps will you take to embrace responsibility and move away from spotlight? What is more important to you? To get results, success, or to develop people? So these are some of the questions that I'd like you to look at. And after this message, write one or two takeaways from what I shared. And how will that change your leadership? That is something I want to leave you with. Thank you for letting me speak to us this evening. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I'm speaking from my own pain, from my own failures. I just wanted to be transparent with you. God bless you and have a blast during this whole leadership summit that we've got together. We have fantastic speakers, we have all things rounded for you. Just enjoy it. Blessings.